Airbending may be easy to underestimate, but what are the actual strengths and weaknesses of airbending? First, let's take a look at some overall advantages of airbending. Right away, it's pretty clear that airbenders are at an advantage when it comes to bending material. Air is everywhere. It's possible to isolate water, earth, and firebenders away from their respective elements. But there's a reason the Fire Nation had such a hard time keeping a hold of Aang. Not only is air everywhere, but it's also not particularly limited by cyclical factors. Unlike water, which is tied to the moon, or fire, which is tied to the sun, air doesn't seem to have any weaker or stronger times of day. And though it does grow stronger in the autumn, airbending doesn't have periods of total inactivity, like the lunar or solar eclipse. Finally, airbending can be frighteningly powerful as an offensive weapon. When it's untethered from the peace-loving air nomad philosophy, airbending can be fearsome and very dangerous. Air's ubiquity and consistency definitely strengthen airbending as a discipline overall. But let's take a deeper look at airbending's combative strengths and weaknesses. Airbending's development has been shaped by the air nomad's philosophy of pacifism.
And I've only had to use violence for necessary defense. And I've certainly never used it to take a life.
So airbending has strong defensive techniques. One of the most iconic moves is the air sphere, which acts as a shield on the ground, underwater, or flying through the air. Many of airbending's moves are built around the concept of conflict avoidance.
The key is to be like the leaf. Flow with the movement of the gates. Airbending is all about spiral movements. When you meet resistance, you must be able to switch direction at a moment's notice.
Since airbending focuses on constant mobility and moving through the path of least resistance, many of the defensive techniques involve dodging and evasive maneuvers. So it's very difficult to actually land a blow on an airbender. And even if an opponent manages to land a direct hit, air cushions can break heavy falls, and the air sphere can even withstand a concentrated onslaught of firebending. Actually, airbending seems to be particularly effective against firebending. Since fire isn't as solid as earth or water, it's susceptible to airbending blocks like the one Aang uses against Fire Lord Ozai and Combustion Man. Airbending's emphasis on agile, evasive movements can turn into an offensive advantage as well, by goading opponents into tiring themselves out.
She's moving like an entirely different player. The platypus bears have no juice left, but Mako and Bolin are still fresh and juicy.
Or destroying their own advantages.
You haven't thrown a single blow.
No, but you have.
Speaking of offensive strengths, airbending is useful for long-range, broad moves like in
Airbending Slice!
Airbenders can send out a powerful blast that literally blows their opponents away. These offensive moves can take on many different forms, from a tornado to a pro-bending inspired punch to the actual form of the airbender himself. Though airbenders can launch precision attacks, the element's greatest advantage is its wide, sweeping attacks that deflect opponents. And last but not least, airbending also offers serious stealth capabilities. In Omashu, Aang is able to drop off Tom Tom without a sound. He even manages to avoid Toph's seismic sense by floating around the Earth Rumble ring.
Somebody's a little light on his feet. What's your fighting name? The fancy dancer?
Airbending does have its disadvantages in combat though. Air doesn't have the physical impenetrability of stone, which can limit its offensive effects against earthbenders.
Did someone leave the windows open? It feels a little drafty in here.
Overall, Airbending's combative strengths are pretty impressive though, especially when it comes to defensive and long-range moves. Of course, the peace-loving air nomads definitely take advantage of Airbending's less combative, more practical strengths. Well, relatively practical. In terms of mobility, airbending is unparalleled. Airbenders can run at incredible speeds.
Ah, that's just a bunch of Fire Lord propaganda. There's no way that's true.
And that's not just across land. Even airbenders in training can leap up cliffs, and sheer verticals are no match for an air scooter. And of course, airbenders have their gliders, which can carry them for as long as they can keep bending the air currents to stay aloft.
It lets me control the air currents around my glider and fly.
A glider can carry more than one person too. But airbending gets even more intense. Airbenders can technically gain the ability to fly, though it's a highly advanced skill. Only 2 airbenders are known to have mastered it, Guru Laghima and Zaheer.
Did he just fly?
Even though it's an incredibly rare skill, flight is a definite strength for airbending. Another practical application of airbending shows up in the very first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Ever wonder why Katara and Sokka are bundled up in parkas in the South Pole, but Aang doesn't even wear a coat?
Just curious.
It's because of airbenders' ability to regulate their body temperatures.
If it weren't so cold, I'd go right back to sleep.
Then this is the perfect time to learn meditation and proper breathing technique. Airbenders are able to warm themselves with only their breathing.
That comes in handy during Aang's travels, and it also might allow airbenders to live comfortably at high altitudes in their mountaintop air temples. Airbending is also strong enough to move heavy objects, whether that's in combat or in fake earthbending.
That lemur, he's earthbending.
And there are many other creative airbending techniques like amplifying sounds, stopping lava in its tracks, creating suction, and even cooling down soup.
Allow me.
That doesn't mean airbending doesn't have its drawbacks when it comes to practical uses. Though powerful, airbending lacks durability. Earthbending can create permanent structures, like an earth tent, a building, or even an entire island, with the help of a few other elements, and the Avatar state. Similarly, waterbending doesn't always require constant active bending. Waterbenders can freeze an opponent in ice, or build entire cities, like the North Pole. Even firebenders' flames will keep burning if given enough fuel.
Fire is alive. It breathes, it grows.
But airbending's effects require constant effort, so even an air scooter seems to have a limited lifespan. Airbending's ephemerality may count as a weakness, though it's a fitting trait for an element that privileges freedom from earthly connections.
Air is the element of freedom. The air nomads detached themselves from worldly concerns and found peace and freedom.
And that philosophy of freedom leads us to the cultural strengths of airbending. After harmonic convergence, not all the new airbenders became air nomads. But being both an airbender and an air nomad has some serious perks, since many of the strengths in airbending actually come from the air nomads' cultures and customs. First up, the unique bond with the sky bison.
A sky bison is a companion for life.
Getting a lift from a flying bison is a unique and relatively fast way to travel.
We've been riding for hours. I don't know why, but I thought this thing would be a lot faster.
Though it's not for everyone. But a sky bison is much more than a pet or a beast of burden.
I guess this means we'll always be together.
An air nomad who bonds with a flying bison gains a lifelong friend.
I missed you, buddy.
a powerful defender, and possibly an airbending teacher.
The original airbenders were the sky bison. Maybe you can give me a lesson sometime, buddy.
The emphasis that air nomads place on spirituality also yields some incredible abilities, like spiritual projection.
How are you here right now? Shh, quiet. It's a high-level airbender move, with a little spiritual stuff thrown in.
This technique lets an airbender explore distant or inaccessible areas. Like flight though, spiritual projection is a very rare skill. Jinora is the only known airbender able to use it. And the difficulty of spiritual projection actually points towards one significant barrier to mastering airbending: the deep spiritual dedication that it requires.
No one seems to be interested in the hard work required to become a part of the Air Nation.
As we see in Korra's initial struggle to learn airbending, it takes a great degree of training and meditation to master the element. As with earthbending, a student's temperament can make airbending tough to learn.
Yeah, it's not sinking in yet. I'm gonna go get a glass of lychee juice.
Korra, the meditation's not over yet.
Daddy, can I have some lychee juice too?
No.
Also, airbending emphasizes letting go of earthly attachments. While this is neither a pro nor a con in itself, letting go can prove difficult, even for Aang.
Meditate on what attaches you to this world.
He's able to relinquish his physical connections to his culture, one by one, as his journey progresses. 3 of the 4 air temples are destroyed. His traditional air nomad garb is ruined in Ba Sing Se, and Aang even burns his glider, which was handcrafted by the monks. However, he refuses to completely let go of the people he loves.
Katara's in danger! I have to go!
No, Aang!
While nobody would argue that Aang is a weak airbender by any means, there are certain airbending skills he likely never achieved. Skills like flying, which require an airbender to completely relinquish all connection to the material world.
The monks taught me that I had to detach myself from the world so my spirit could be free.
Many great and wise air nomads have detached themselves and achieved spiritual enlightenment. But the Avatar can never do it.
Overall, though airbenders generally embrace a philosophy of non-violence, airbending's power is not to be underestimated. In the balance of the 4 elements, air definitely holds its own. And though airbending, when untethered from the air nomad's peaceful beliefs, is a fearsome element with incredible power, Aang himself demonstrates the immense strength that comes from the airbender's spiritual convictions.
The monks always taught me that all life is sacred, even the life of the tiniest spiderfly caught in its own web.
To bend another's energy, your own spirit must be unbendable, or you will be corrupted and destroyed.